Dan Perry is the former editor of the Associated Press in Europe, the Middle East and Africa. He joins us now from Tel Aviv. Dan, thank you for joining us. It's quite something in that report that Hani Mahmoud just sent to us. It's evidence really about the lack of infrastructure that's left, also the lack of basic civic services. Now, how does this get replaced and organised with this lack of governance and a void?
I would be very concerned. I really don't know how. It's very clear that the alternate governance structure, backed up by huge sums of money that appear to be pretty much in escrow in the Gulf, with the entire world committed to seeing it through and engaged in this, as reflected by the fact that figures like Trump and, who knows, Tony Blair, much though some may disapprove of him, but this shows engagement, that everyone's involved in fixing what is a Dresden-like calamity over there. I mean, it has to be seen through. And absent that, I don't know what you do. The Saudis, I believe, have made clear that they're not going to send money for reconstruction unless Hamas is gone. The Israelis have made clear they're prepared to walk away from the deal, or at least from their own commitments as regards opening the gateways to Gaza, the ones they control, and of course the humanitarian side. It's very clear that there are manifold regional impediments to doing what needs to happen. I can only hope that all the players involved, from the Western mediators and the Americans that are so engaged, and we see, of course, three major American figures in Israel today and tomorrow: Vance, Kushner, and Witkoff. And the Saudis and the Qataris and the Egyptians and the Turks, they have to unblock this. And I mean, it's clear to me the plan was the 20-point plan, and all 20 points need to be implemented.
Dan, so you've got these interlocutors turning up. We've already got Kushner and Witkoff, I believe, in Israel, and J.D. Vance is arriving too. What's the message that they are likely to be bringing? And secondly, what is Israel's take on this?
Look, the Israelis are in a state of confusion about whether there really was a 20-point plan, or was it a one-point plan with the return of the hostages, living hostages, and an effort to sort of get them to accept a deal that really has been on the table for over a year, which is end of war for the hostages. I'm putting aside for one moment the issue of the dead hostages that Hamas claims with only minimal credibility to have lost. They're confused. And if it turns out to be just a one stage, and I think they're unenthusiastically prepared to go back to war. Bibi does not want to go back to war because the Israeli public is sick of the war, and he has elections coming up not so long from now. So the previous calculation, where everyone suspected he's prolonging the war to preserve his government, which is dependent on far-right fanatics that want the war, but are a small minority in the country, that flips around when elections are imminent. I think he wants an end to the war, and the people of Israel most certainly do. But the dissonance is that they also have trouble letting go of the idea that they cannot have Hamas across the border, living to fight another day and threatening them once more. Hamas has been saying they'll do more and more October 7th. It's a difficult one to square. And suspecting what I suspect of Netanyahu, I think he would choose a resumption of the war based on the idea that it might be more successful more quickly now, because Israel is no longer constrained by the existence of live hostages in the hands of Hamas. I mean, even though the Israeli campaign was undoubtedly brutal, and we see the result, they were constrained. There were places they couldn't go. There were basically no-go zones for them because they knew where the hostages were. Now, conceivably, they can do more and maybe really finish off Hamas. I think that will be a tempting proposition. Will the Americans allow it? Your guess is as good as mine, but we all heard Trump saying several days ago that if Hamas doesn't disarm, we'll go in and disarm them. I don't really believe that. But an in-between solution where he allows Israel to resume the war is conceivable. And I think all of us, as we look at what's going on in Gaza, we understand how terrible that would be. So I see really no more important task right now than to make sure Hamas is agreeable to the 20 points, including
Dan?
disarmament in Gaza. That's just the way it's going to have to be.
Dan, just very quickly, just interrupting you for a second, because we have the Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, just arriving at the White House for the first time during this second term of the Trump presidency. He's there on a visit discussing primarily defense matters, so we are led to believe. And there they are. Anyway, Dan, let's get back to what we were talking about here. And I wanted to ask you, you mentioned the word dissonance. And last time we talked, you mentioned the big divide between what Israelis thought was going on in Gaza. And now they have they seen for themselves, I suppose, has the coverage now shown the amount of devastation there is? And how has that changed the kind of calculus that people have?
Oh, I think they knew. It's true that the Israeli media has been very cautious in airing all the destruction. They've aired it, but it's not a popular thing to air and to broadcast. And just as some might be accused of exaggerating, the Israelis have underplayed. I think the important thing is to figure out what really actually happened. That there is enormous physical destruction is indisputable. We see it. That the infrastructure has been crushed is obviously clear, and these are emergencies. But I think when you ask what the Israelis are going to really think of what has been done in their name over the past 2 years, a lot depends on finding out what really happened. Because Israelis distrust, for example, the casualty figures. And honestly, they should. I mean, these are figures coming out of an area that is unfree. I wouldn't trust casualty figures coming out of North Korea. So now that the media can go in and investigate more, now that NGOs by the truckload are going to be going in there with free access and no fear of Hamas militants of any kind and no fear of the war, the truth, I think, or something closer to the accurate truth will come out. If it's as bad as what's been reported, I think Israelis are going to have to do some introspection. As I say, currently the suspicion is that much of the discourse about the degree of destruction done in the war was propaganda. And they tend to believe voices, for example, coming out of the U.S. War College. We all know the protagonists arguing that, in fact, the civilian casualty ratio in a war against insurgents in this kind of asymmetrical warfare was not among the worst, and that the Americans and the coalition did worse in Mosul and Raqqa. We'll have to wait and see, but I think the Israelis are in a waiting mode to figure out in a way that is credible from their perspective what actually happened. The military, of course, has been rather opaque. In past conflicts, I remember when I was at AP, I mean, I made a huge effort to explain every case of civilian damage, and they really wanted to make sure that the foreign press didn't think that they were being punitive or engaging in collective punishment. Realistically, that hasn't been done this time around, certainly not towards the end of it. The scale was so huge, and the degree to which they felt hard done by a global propaganda campaign just made them give up. So we don't even have the Israeli side. It'll be very important to reconstruct events and get at the truth.
Dan, thank you so much. Dan Perry there joining us from Tel Aviv.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news, expert insight. Like, share, stay ahead.